Mariel Hemingway, best known as an Academy Award-nominated actress, but now a health advocate, someone who's lecturing around the world on the importance of partnership, and just a delightful human being, Mariel Hemingway.
What's my idea of personal happiness? I think that personal happiness comes from a sense of peace and well-being on the inside. And I think that comes through your lifestyle, through the choices you make every day. You know, I talk a lot about like the mundane things that we do, the simple things that we do. How do we wake up in the morning? What are our first thoughts? How do we feel? Are we breathing deeply? Are we connecting in nature? That's probably one of the biggest things that gives me personal happiness, is just knowing, I mean, we're out here in nature, and just the feeling of being connected gives you a sense of happiness. It gives you a sense of joy. It gives you a sense of yourself. And I think true happiness comes when you're authentically you. And I think when you quit kind of reaching out for something outside of yourself, and you find that you're your best teacher, guru, nutritionist, guide, whatever, it's in you, that you realize that you are the source of your own happiness. That's the greatest gift of all. You know, I think that's really what happiness is when you realize that you are your own happiness. It comes within you. You know, I guess everybody spends a life, not everybody, but many people spend a lifetime kind of reaching up and out, and, you know, like God's gonna give, or my priest, or my this or my that is gonna tell me how to feel. And when you realize that how you feel is within you, that your guides and your happiness and your joy really lies in your heart, it's your source of happiness. Well, my grandfather, you know, he was considered a very courageous man, and he used to talk about courage as being grace under pressure. And I think there's something to be said for that, you know, how one deals with one's life under pressure, and the courage to look at your life, to look at yourself. I think that does take courage. And I think courage it really does have to do with that ability to look at who you are. One of the things that I like to ask myself, and, you know, my partner Bobby Williams, we both like to ask ourselves, who am I being right now? You know, because a lot of times we're not being ourselves when we're reacting, or life is taking on some sort of form that you don't like, and you know, I'm a big reactor, you know, I was an actor, so I react, you know, and I'm very emotional. So sometimes that emotion and that reaction comes from the not self, the not me. So I sometimes have to ask myself, who am I being right now? And it's not comfortable. It takes courage to go, you know what, this isn't me, or this is a bad choice, and I need to move my direction into something more authentically myself. I need to slow myself down. I need to take a deep breath. I need to be silent so I can be more me. Well, courage is a really interesting topic. I mean, my grandfather really, I think he based his whole writing and his whole, you know, direction in his artistry was based on dealing with a sense of courage. You know, grace under pressure is what he said courage was, you know. How do you deal with your life under pressure? And it takes courage to look at yourself. And I think one of the key things in being your authentic self is having the courage to be truly you, and to look at how you're being, how you're showing up in the world, and making course corrections when it's not appropriate, when you're not being as kind as you can be, when you're not speaking your truth, when you're not being aware, when you're not taking enough time to be conscious in everything that you do, in the mundane things that you do. You know, are you considerate? You know, just the simple things. Are you full of gratitude? It's those kinds of things that actually build this foundation of authenticity. And it takes courage to do that, only because the environment and society really kind of directs us towards inauthenticity, only because it's directed towards a certain amount of a population. But we're not cutouts, you know, we're not dolls. We're not all the same. So our choices are very different based on our upbringing, based on whatever, you know, what makes us authentic is unique to each and every one of us. But if you have the courage to really look at your stuff, you know, and I think sometimes it takes time, it takes experience, it takes going, I've been through this and I've been through that, and I have the courage to look at those things and why I made those choices, and then go, all right, I can be who I want to be. I can be authentically myself and in truth with myself by taking the time to look at me. Integrity is such a powerful thing to talk about, because integrity is really, I think that it's the basis of being authentic. I mean, if you have integrity in your soul, then you cannot be anything but authentic. And it's difficult to I mean, again, it gets back to courage. To have integrity, you have to have the courage to say, this is what I believe based on my experience. Because just like, you know, I do make statements about health and wellness that aren't of popular belief, you know. I say that you look in the sun, there's times that you can look directly into the sun, you know, right before a sunset or right after a sunrise. I know from experience that it doesn't injure my eyes, but that's not based in a scientific thing. That's based on my experience. And but I will tell you that from a place of integrity, because I know it to be true for myself. So integrity comes from your own self-knowing, your own self-awareness. And integrity comes from your heart. I think people that have integrity really come from their heart. They're not lying about who they are, you know, and integrity is perception too, you know. I mean, one person might think I have integrity and another person might think I'm crazy, you know, or think I'm a Looney Tune or whatever they might think. It doesn't really matter. I have to hold in my truth, knowing that what I say is based on my experience, maybe not based on all scientific research, but it's based on my own heart knowing. And it's kind of hard to stand in your integrity there, because sometimes people go, pfft, and it's a scary thing. I think that a woman's courage comes from an intuition, comes from I will face this from my being driven by self. I can't speak to me. Yeah. Okay.
It's clear now. Stand by and
okay.
Action.
What an interesting question. You know, is there a difference between male courage and female courage? I think there probably is. I think that female courage probably comes from a place of intuition, female intuition. I think it comes from, I am doing this, and the drive behind it is more feminine. It's probably more emotional, probably more driven by a sense of nurturing.
What are you saying? I'm not nurturing?
Yeah, whatever. Maybe not. You're very loving. Whatever. We'll talk about it. We'll talk to you. You'll get your chance.
Make her laugh once.
No, I like it. It's all good.
I'll laugh once in a while. Man, that was very serious.
She is being serious. Okay. Well, it's a serious question. But
It is, but I think that male courage is much more like based in, like, it's kind of like the cojones. You know, it's like having the balls to do something. It's about, you know, like, I do climb with Bobby, or, you know, I'm up there and I'm not thinking about courage. I'm not thinking about going after something. I think a man goes after something. My grandfather went after something. He wants to be in the face of a bull, you know, or whatever it is.
Bravado.
But I think a guy really comes from this place of male energy, like conquering. I think courage comes from, I'm going to face these demons, I'm going to fight that war, I'm going to do something. I don't think women go about life that way. So I think there is there's a subtlety to it. You know, I think there are certain things in life about courage that may be very similar, but I think that's the beauty of male and female, is that we're different. There's yin and there's yang, you know. Well, I think that, you know, integrity and courage have a great deal to do with leadership. I think the two of them go together. I think if you have integrity, if you have courage, that you would be a very good leader. Leadership is interesting because leadership means, I think, that you have integrity, you have courage, and you have a point of view, you know, and you have a belief system based on this authenticity of self, you know, and based on purity of heart. And I think a good leader really is drawn and guided by their own heart, their own desire to do good in the world, you know, and feeling as though their passion is guiding them and making them, you know. I think leadership isn't something you try to do. It's kind of You just have it or you don't have it. You know, I think people following other people, I, by the way, don't believe in following people because I've followed everyone. So I know that actually following yourself is the key. But I think that we do need leaders. We do need people to look up to in regard to, in the sense that you look up to them to say, I can see that that's a good point of view. I can see that I can go in this direction and you know, be guided by myself, but this is somebody who's giving me a path to follow. So I think that, you know, I think leadership is not necessarily taught. I think it's a gift that's given. But I think that it can come over time too. Because I don't think I would have been a very good leader, you know, 15 years ago. Whereas I think that I can be a good leader now just by being authentically myself. But I wasn't comfortable with myself. So I think being authentic actually gives you the ability to be a good leader. Well, I grew up in an unbelievably beautiful part of the world. I grew up in Sun Valley, Idaho, and you know, it's where my grandfather used to hunt in the fall, and you know, I was a ski racer as a child, and my family was, although extraordinary, really difficult. You know, I mean, it was a very dysfunctional family. There were 7 suicides in my family. There was, you know, tremendous mental illness. There was cancer. There was diabetes. There was all kinds of craziness going on. So my solace, my escape, my rescue was to be out in nature. It's where I felt at peace. It's where I wasn't scared. I was never scared out in nature. I never felt like something was going to attack me. You know, people are like, "Are you afraid of bears?" You know, I was much more afraid in my home when people were drinking and screaming. You know, and that's not a complaint. So many people come from that, and it's why I actually talk about it. But nature was where I got something back, and it gave it freely and unconditionally and without any strings attached. There was just this sense of peace, a sense of calm, and a sense of purity. And I realized early on, although I couldn't articulate it then and I can articulate it now, is that it was the place that I was most me. Because I didn't have to be anything for anybody.
And growing up?
Yeah, I think when I was a kid, though I didn't acknowledge it at the time, you know, I knew that, I remember reading, actually it's very interesting because, you know, my grandfather wasn't a health advocate by any means, you know, I was a bit of a drinker and all that stuff, but if you read some of his books and you read maybe Movable Feast, and he's talking about walking up a mountain and the feeling of his muscles and you know, walking in the snow, and you know, and he could hear his breath and he could feel his breath. And I remember reading it, and I was very young at the time, and going outside, because I did a lot of hiking, a lot of walking, a lot of running in all kinds of weather, and especially in the winter I would run through snow and stuff like that. And I remember being conscious of that breath and knowing that that had some kind of importance, and maybe my grandfather planted that seed, you know, and then later on in life I become a yogi, and you know, yoga is all about breath. So there's something about that. There's this through line that breath and nature and connecting and slowing down and being silent and connecting and listening, being more slow. I knew these were important things. I couldn't say why they were, but I could feel them. Because I felt better after I connected in nature, and it's in everything that I do now. And I realize when I share my experience, or we're writing a book and we're writing about these experiences, I know through my experience of nature and being there and having it heal me when I was most stressed or scared, or you know, going through, somebody committed suicide in my family, or my mother died of cancer, or my father dies of heart disease, and going outside. And that's how I got through those moments, is by going, okay, I can handle this because here I am. This is my God, so to speak. This is my happy. This is where I can find my solace, and this is where I will get answers. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but at some point I will be given what I need. Because some people will say, oh wow, you've had such a traumatic life. You know, it's my life. I don't know anything different. And I've always been given exactly what was appropriate for me to learn what I needed to learn, and to be here today to be able to say. And I think it gets back to leadership. I think that you go through a lot of experiences in your life so that you can share later on, go, look, I've been there. I do know how you feel. To have empathy with people and sympathy is to really know their experience, to have experienced something quite similar and to be able to say, I know how difficult this is. But guess what? You're never given anything more than you can handle. You're given it exactly because you can handle it. And just knowing that it's not you, it's how you react to it. In my relationship with Bobby, all we do is laugh. We just nothing's that serious, I think I've been through so much. And who knows, maybe I'll be through more stuff, but I really get that it's so important to just be light, Don't take yourself so seriously. It's really not a big deal. And by the way, no one has a different problem. No one. There's 9 problems out there. They just have different wrapping paper, We all have the same problems. Like, you go, really? You used to, I used to be obsessed with food. I had all food issues, and I thought, I was so ashamed of I was so sad and ashamed. Then I realized, there's a big, there's big groups that deal with all, but there's not a new problem. People have problems in relationships. They have problems here, there, and everywhere. There's not one new problem. So when you realize that, you realize when a problem comes up, it's like, I read 10 million other people have the same problem. It's not such a big deal. And you realize it's just come up to scratch you and kind of press your buttons and see how you react to it. So that's why I laugh all the time, because it's like, and I get emotional, I get really mad and stuff like that, but it takes me no time to laugh at it. And I'm the first to admit that I get a little crazy, I cry a little too much, but I can laugh at it. I have to think that gratitude is probably one of the most important things that you can have in your life. I mean, just waking up every day and being grateful to be here is just an extraordinary message to the world, to your world. It doesn't mean that you're announcing that to everybody, but in your world, in your energy field, which is connected to everybody else's energy field, when you put gratitude out there, it connects with everybody else. And that network of I am grateful goes out into the world, and it spreads that gratitude. And when you have gratitude, your happiness comes, because you realize I am a very small fish in a very big sea, and yet that big sea is part of me. So I'm actually part of the big sea. And then you're grateful for that, and you realize that it's really an extraordinary life that we lead. Yeah, there's hardships. Yeah, the economy stinks. Yeah, this, yeah, that, whatever. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in all of our lives. But when you have gratitude for all of it, and I mean even the things that feel like sticklers, even the things that feel nasty to you, when you have gratitude for it, when you go, I don't know what the hell this is here for, but I'm actually grateful for it because I know that I'm learning something from it, then all of a sudden it breaks open and you've come to a new place in your life. You've come to a new level of understanding of self. And you come to a new level of happiness. Well, my partner, Bobby Williams, and I are writing a book called Be You Now, Stepping into the Life You Were Meant to Live. And we're both passionate about spreading the word about health and wellness and connecting in nature and being your authentic self. And it's a personal passion, it's my individual passion, and it's also our collective passion together. Because being truly authentic is everything you do. It's all of your life. It's in all the choices that you make, what food you eat, what thoughts you think, whether you take a walk barefoot in nature, whether you take in the rays of a sunrise or a sunset. It's how you make tea in the morning. It's how you speak to your daughter or your son. It's how whether or not you call a friend. It's how you interact with your coworkers. It's every little thing that you do. It's the deep breaths that you take. It's everything. Lifestyle is everything. So sharing healthy lifestyle with people, not as, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to do this and I'm going to be more connected to something. Nothing is separate. So lifestyle is about how am I being in every aspect of my life? So my passion, our passion together is to share with people how they can find their own unique way of stepping into the world and making a difference for themselves. Because once you make a difference for yourself, you make a difference in the world. Once you show up as yourself, all of a sudden the rest of your environment, your children, your neighbors, your coworkers, all that stuff start to change because you become an example of a higher consciousness. You become an example of living more in your highest. You become more you, and becoming more you changes the world. I really believe that. So it's not about like, oh, I'm doing Be You now and I want everybody to follow me and I'm the coolest person on the planet. It's like, no, you're the coolest person on the planet. I want to share that everybody out there is the coolest person on the planet. And they need to find that so that they can be extraordinary. And I think, when people become authentic, that creates peace in the world. When they're coming from them, they're not being told what to do, they're not being guided, they're not being led around by the nose, this, that, and the other thing. When they're truly being themselves, that's a loving place to come from. Because I believe that people are good at heart. I really do. There may be some bad seeds out there, but I truly believe that there's goodness in all of us. And to expand in your goodness and in your love, it is a great, great message to the world. And I just want to go out there and share that through doing adventurous things, through doing fun things, through cooking great meals, through laughter, through connecting in nature. All the things that we do in our life, even the mundane things, are part of becoming more authentic and sharing that with other people and inspiring them to change their own lives to become more themselves.